Hi, I'm Kaden here with my brother, Cal, and you're listening to Eating W's.
Eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
So, on today's episode of Eating W's, we have our third and final top 10 ranking for the positions in the NFL for the 2022 season, and we're going to be wrapping it up with, of course, none other than the quarterbacks. But before we jump into that, we have a little bit of news from the prior week, so we'll get that out of the way, starting with a couple of extensions. First of all, the Steelers and Diontae Johnson agree on a 2-year, $36.7 million extension. So the new number one there is most likely Diontae Johnson, and they're going to start paying him like it. So good to see it for Diontae Johnson. And finally, even better to see, Justin Tucker becomes the highest paid kicker in NFL history with a 4-year, $24 million extension, with around 17 of that being guaranteed money. So that is awesome to see. If anyone deserves it in the specialist line in the NFL, it is Justin Tucker. Man,
Not
that
surprised
guy
after
is
that
clutch.
66-yarder.
Exactly. It is just insane what that guy is able to do, and he is finally getting that money. And then now to flip to a little more of a sad note, we have 2 camp injuries that are going to be affecting people short and long term. First of all, starting with a little bit of Vikings, Irv Smith Jr. will miss the rest of camp and some of the preseason due to a thumb surgery. So it sucks to see him missing another camp, but his injury last year took him out for the whole season. So hopefully this one does not take him out for the whole season again. But something that will be taken out for the whole season is Tim Patrick, because very, very sadly, Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick tore his ACL during the Broncos camp and will be out for the entirety of the 2022 NFL season. So you really hate to see it. It sucks when it happens during the season. It sucks even more when it happens before the season starts. But it's kind of one of those things that come with the game, and hope the best for Tim Patrick.
Yeah, it's too bad. He really stepped up as a number one when Judy and Cortland Sutton went down. So now they'll have to reverse roles, and the other two will have to pick up the slack.
Yep, definitely. I could also see the Broncos picking up some of the free agents that are still left. Guys like Cole Beasley, T.Y. Hilton, Will Fuller are still on the free agency market, so expect one of them to be going to Denver sometime here soon. But now that the news is out of the way, we will jump straight into our top 10 rankings, starting with the honorable mention.
So for my honorable mention, I went with Lamar Jackson, because Lamar is a great athlete, but I graded these on the best pure quarterback stats. So even though he's in a lot of top 10s, I wanted to at least give him a shout out, because he's just not a pure quarterback like most of these guys on this list. Like I said, he's a great athlete, and he's a perfect fit for Baltimore's unique offense, which is run, run, run. So he fits in Baltimore, and he's a great fit for them. But as far as top 10, I just don't think he's a top 10 quarterback.
Totally agree. I think you made really good points there that he's perfect for their offense, just not the best all-around quarterback. And I really like that ranking there in the honorable mention. But you know my thoughts on Lamar Jackson aren't the highest, but it's just kind of my taste. So moving on to my honorable mention, I'm going to keep going with the whole biggest breakout potential at my honorable mention spot and kind of put a shocker in here with Lions quarterback Jared Goff. Now he's got a couple of new weapons on that offense, including explosive rookie Jameson Williams. He's got kind of a new and improved defense, and he's just, of course, got the most hype coach in the NFL right now, Dan Campbell. So that's something going for him big right there, right off the bat. And, I know he doesn't have the most talent, but I think he's really got a chance to prove himself more than ever this year. And at the end of the day, you do have to remember that he didn't play well to get there, and he sure didn't play it well in the game. But he is a Super Bowl quarterback. Didn't win it, but Jared Goff was in a Super Bowl, which is crazy to think about. But at the end of the day, it happens, so you got to remember that. So I have Jared Goff here at my honorable mention.
You still got to figure out how to win a game without Sean McVay, though.
Exactly. He certainly does need to do that. But we'll see. I think this is his best chance since Sean McVay for sure. So now we'll jump straight in with number 10.
For my number 10, I went with Las Vegas quarterback Derek Carr. who has a great arm talent, and he's an even better leader. After all the tumultuous trouble that the Raiders went through last year, he really was able to lead that team to a playoff berth all by himself. And I think that alone just puts him into the top 10. And now he's got a new top wide receiver to help with that offensive productivity. So we'll have to see how he does. But just him being such a great leader after all the trouble, that puts him up in the top 10 for me.
I like it. Derek Carr and Devontae Adams back again after all these years. They spent their senior season together back in 2013 at Fresno State, so it'll be really cool to get to see them play together again. Here at my number 10, I have another bit.
Sure.
What?
I said yeah.
Oh yeah, it won't be as exciting for you, I suppose, but for us Vikings fan and any non-Packers fan, it's going to be very exciting to see Devontae
Notice I
Adams
didn't
somewhere
say
else.
his name, just a new top wide
A
receiver.
new top wide. So at my 10 here, I got a little bit of a shocker, but someone I really like, and that is Zach Wilson. Now he just has so much upside. Number 10 might be a little high for him at this point, but I wanted to get one of the 2021 sophomore quarterbacks in there in this top 10 ranking, and I think Zach Wilson has the most potential there. He's got all this new talent around him, huge upside, huge arm talent. He knows when to run, but he can also stay in the pocket and stay strong there. So I just really like his chances of breaking out this year. And after all this stuff happened with him begging his mom's best friend, doesn't get any better. He earned his top 10 ranking right there in my books. So he slips into the top 10 for me just barely.
Just barely. Yeah, I could see the Jets and Zach Wilson being one of the teams like the Bengals last year, who really kind of came out of nowhere to win their division and get to the Super Bowl. And they have a similar team to the Bengals, so it's definitely a strong possibility.
With the Bills there, I don't see them winning the division, but I definitely see them maybe.
Slipping into
I
a
shouldn't
wild
say
card.
definitely, but I could very easily see them slipping into a wild card, yes. So now we will slip straight into number 9.
For my number 9, I went with Denver quarterback Russell Wilson, who, has a fantastic leader, and now he's got a lot of talent around him, although minus Tim Patrick. But at the time when I wrote this, I don't think he had torn his ACL yet.
No, I don't
So,
think so.
I said he has a lot of talent around him. He still does with Javonte Williams,
Melvin Gordon.
Melvin Gordon. I always get Melvin Gordon, Melvin Ingram mixed
Oh,
up.
yeah.
And then the top 2 wide receivers with Judy and Cortland Sutton. So we'll have to see if he can freely cook now. It won't be all on him. So that's why he's in the top 10, because he was able to lead that Seattle team, even though minus last year, to mostly playoff berths. But now he's got a lot more talent around him, so we'll see if he can freely cook and get the Denver Broncos to the next level.
Yeah. I won't touch much on Wilson now because I will be talking about him later, but all I gotta say is just that it seems a little low. I mean, I think that he's already a top 5 quarterback even when he's in Seattle. Now he's got the new weapons, but I can see where you're coming from. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the league.
He didn't do so hot last year without the talent around him. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So moving on to my number 9, I have none other than the eater of W's himself, Jameis Winston. Now he showed so much promise at the beginning of last year, and then sadly went down with that injury, wiped his whole season out. But, so coming into this year, he's got that new chance. He's got a whole another year in the system learning the playbook. And, if anything, he has more talent this year than he did last year after possibly getting Michael Thomas back and picking up Chris Olave in the draft. You still got your Alvin Kamara, you still got Mark Ingram in the backfield. It is just, there's so much potential for Jameis Winston right now, so it's all up to him staying healthy and playing up to that potential.
Yeah, the eater of W's, I think he's really good. I think he's going to shock people this year if he can stay healthy. He's just too injury prone for me to put on my top 10
Very
list.
injury prone. It makes me nervous to put him there, but
Yeah.
if he can stay healthy, I think he's really got a chance to be top 10. So now we'll jump to number 8.
For my number 8, I went with Dallas quarterback Dak Prescott, who has a great football mind and an innate ability to improve his drive every year, which that alone he seems to get a little bit higher every year in the quarterback rankings. So we'll have to see how high he can get through this year. I still don't like his coaching very much. We all know that. But even through all the bad coaching, he had a very good season last year and continues to build on every season that he has. He does a little bit better. Like, and for instance, in his first year, he got sacked on like 20% of his dropbacks, and he's now at getting sacked on like 3% of his dropbacks.
Damn, that's pretty good. I'm surprised it was ever that high with how good their offensive line was. But yeah, I really like Dak Prescott. I think he is a top 10 talent. Not top 5 or anything, but I think he definitely slipped into the top 10 talent-wise. But with these rankings, I looked a lot more at the talent around him and kind of the coaching and offensive scheme. And though they do pass a lot, and that goes well for him, if you look at the talent around him, they've really lost a lot, being one big piece being Amari Cooper, of course, their former number 1, now going to the Browns. And then, they lost some backup guys like
Cedric Wilson.
Cedric Wilson and stuff like that. So it's just kind of that drop in talent that just barely placed him outside of the top 10 for me. But I do agree that he probably could make a spot there. And for my number 8, I have Baker Mayfield. Now, he is getting a new start there in Carolina after being in Cleveland his whole career so far. And it's like I think it's his 5th year and 4th different head coach. So anybody who can play how well he has with all of that change, all these new offenses, is quite impressive. And everyone beats up on him last year from having that torn labrum. And when you just play a whole season injured, of course you cannot play up to your full potential, up to that 100%. So now that he's more moved past that injury, he's got just as much, if not more, talent in Carolina as he did in Cleveland. Maybe not at the running back position depth-wise, but definitely at the receiver position depth-wise. I just think this is really his chance. He's got the fresh new start. He's got the uninjured shoulder now. I think he's really going to show up. I do.
Yeah, he almost got into my top 10. I almost put him in there. He's just on the outside looking in. I think that, the coaching change and the change of scenery is going to be great for him. I think he's going to really surprise people this year and do really well.
Yeah. He thought he had fun checking down to Kareem Hunt. Imagine how much fun he's going to have to see Christian McCaffrey, if McCaffrey can stay
As long
injured.
as he can stay healthy.
But that's a whole different story. So now we will move on to number 7.
For my number 7, I went with Cincinnati quarterback Joe Burrow, who has very good accuracy. And his main thing that put him into the top 10 was his mythical level of reputation and aura around him. He just seems to be that winning type of quarterback. He has kind of an unorthodox style of quarterbacking, and just his aura and his ability to bring the team to a higher level is just enough to get him into the top 10, as you can see with the Super Bowl run last year.
Good old Joe Cool. Another guy just outside of my top 10. Didn't quite make it into my list, but still, nevertheless, an amazing quarterback. Just a little too much of a wild card for me, which I know is funny with me putting Zach Wilson at 10, but he had that injury year 1, and then he had this crazy year 2. It's just, I'm super excited to see what he's going to do year 3, but for now, he's just outside of my top 10. And then sitting here at my number 7, I have Raiders quarterback Derek Carr, who Calvin already touched on a little bit earlier. But now he's got his best friend at wide receiver. He's able to fight through all the controversy last year. It's just, he's got the improved defense, so that's going to help him out. They're going to be able to create turnovers, create pressure, keep the ball in the Raiders' offensive hands. And overall, he's got a few prime years left in him, so why not put him this high? I think he's really going to have a chance to show himself more than he ever has in his 7 or 8 years in the league, or however long he's been here. So,
For who was your guy?
Derek Carr.
Derek Carr. Oh yeah, I already talked about him. That's
Correct.
fine.
Yep.
Yeah. Fantastic leader. I was like, wait, why do I not have any notes here on
Can we
that?
get you to say Devontae Adams? Devontae Adams is a Raider?
His new wide receiver is Devontae Adams.
As a Vikings fan, it's music to my ear. But now we will move on to number 6.
I still can't believe it. Almost bought an Adams jersey
Oh, that would have
last
been a
year.
rough one,
Yeah.
So now we will move on to number 6.
It's stunning a little bit still to let go of Devontae Adams. But so for my number 6, I went with Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. And it was hard for me to put him on this list because I went all year saying that he's not a very good quarterback. I still don't think he's a super quarterback. I mean, he's sneaky athletic with a cannon arm, but he needs to control his turnovers and quit trying to be so damn flashy with all these no-look passes and jump passes. I mean, it got him in too much trouble last year, and it showed early in the season. And then later on in the year, they kind of got their stuff together and did a lot better. But if he can turn down his turnovers, I think he could be, well, for most people, he is number one on the list, but he could be even higher and an even more productive quarterback if he could just shut down those turnovers and those flashy passes.
Yeah, Mahomes was a really hard person to put on this list because he is, of course, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But then you just have all these variables around him. You look at his talent differences and all this type of stuff. And I think you made a really good point when you talked about being less flashy. Because at first, it really worked well for him because no one had seen it. Defenses weren't ready for it. But then they started preparing for it a little more, and you could tell that once defenses were ready for it, then it worked quite as well, of course. But Mahomes is a really hard person to put on this list, so I do like that ranking. And then at my number 6, I have none other than the Vikings quarterback, Kirk Cousins. Now, he just has all of this talent around him, and it is, if I'm not mistaken, the first year in the entirety of his career after being drafted in 2012 that he has a truly offensive-minded head coach. So the fact that he's been able to put up some of those stats and play like he has, playing with a defensive-minded head coach his career, is pretty impressive in my books, and I think he's really got a chance to blow up now that he's gonna get a guy that really is gonna put his trust in him and be that coach as the head coach.
Yeah, I don't put game manager as my top 10.
Oh,
So.
That's rough. That was our old offense, though. That's what I'm saying. He had to be a game manager in our old offense. Now he's got a chance to bloom.
You know, it really seemed like Zimmer and him did not get along. There was more controversy there than they really let on, and it's coming out now how much distrust there was between the two. So for him to put up, like you said, put up those numbers and continue to play well under such pressure and such a system where it didn't favor the quarterback, that is, you gotta give him credit for that. But until I see him really show that he is more than a game manager, he's just not gonna be in my top 10.
I see where you're coming from, and I like that you said less pressure because that's a great point because he's getting less pressure from a lot of places. We got an improved offensive line, so he's going to be getting less pressure literally on the field, a little less pressure from the media with having the new head coach, less pressure from the head coach himself. So I think this is Cousins' years to
You
shine.
should never feel pressure from your head coach as a quarterback.
And it seems like Zimmer was putting a lot on him, to say the least. But for now, we will move to number 5.
For my number 5, I have Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. And Stafford, I mean, he's got a legendary arm talent. I mean, he's obviously led the Rams to the Super Bowl, but his big knock on him is that he kind of loses focus sometimes in the middle of games. He has a little bit of ADHD, I think. But he makes these bonehead plays where it's like, why did you do that? I mean, he kind of did the Carson Wentz play where he threw the ball in the air in the back of the end zone. I mean, and Carson Wentz is nowhere near the top 10 on my list. So
No.
for him to be making similar plays, that just shows that he's not quite number 1, but because of his leadership, his arm talent, and his ability to just win games when the time is needed for it, that puts him up into the top 5 for me.
Matthew Stafford is a quarterback that I love to watch, and he is definitely top 10 arm talent for me. But just with him aging a little bit, and even though he won that Super Bowl, did he really win that Super Bowl at the end of the day? Kind of like back when I was talking about Jared Goff, did he really make it to that Super Bowl? But he just kind of slipped outside of my top 10 because of those crazy plays and mistakes that he always makes. And my number 5 is San Diego Ooh, I did it. I haven't done that in a while. Los Angeles Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert. Now, he is just an absolute young star. I think he has totally earned a top 5 quarterback ranking. Insane arm talent, insane talent all around from that team. But my biggest knock on Justin Herbert and why I didn't even have him actually a little higher is he needs to be better in the clutch, in those end of games, in those tight games. he wasn't necessarily overly bad. It almost sometimes seemed like the Chargers were just getting super unlucky in those end of game plays. Kind of like the Vikings of the AFC is what I've heard them called, and it's hilarious because it's so true. But there's still more that Herbert could do to improve in the clutch, and overall he is an amazing quarterback who will probably move up the rankings as the years go on.
Yeah, I'll talk about Herbert a little more later on, but I definitely agree. I think he's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and when we get to him in my spot, I'll explain why.
Certainly, so let's move on right to number 4.
For my number 4, I got the man himself, Thomas Edward Brady III. And this guy, he still has high velocity on his passes. He still has high production when it comes to yards and TDs. He doesn't have flashy plays. He doesn't make the big explosive plays. He just makes the winning plays. And he has done that for years and years. And I mean, that alone, his ability to win when it is needed is just puts him up in the top 10 in the top 5 for me, really. And until he starts showing his age and losing games instead of winning games, he's going to remain in that top 5.
Undeniable that he is one of the best, if not the best quarterback to ever play. But he actually is nowhere on my top 10 for the sole reason of that last thing you talked about. He has just gotten to that point where there's no way he can continue to do it. One of these years, it's going to crash, it's going to burn, and I really do think it's this year. Tampa Bay Bucks just don't have near as much hype as they seem to have had around them before, especially right after Brady joined them when the hype was really at its highest. And it's just seeming, it's kind of feeling, I have that feeling that it might be the end for the Brady era. But nevertheless,
every time we think it's the end, though, he goes and does something.
He does.
Or it's like, oh, he's going to play for another 10 years.
It does seem like it sometimes. But speaking of the end of an era, moving to my number 4, I have Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Now I know it's kind of funny to say that Brady is out and Rodgers is still in here at the top 5. But ironically, even with how old Rodgers is, I think he's almost 7 or 8 years younger than Tom Brady.
He is 7 years younger
which
than
is
Tom
just
Brady.
Absolutely insane to think about. But nevertheless, I still think one of these years it's going to happen where he's going to crash and burn. I'm not going to give him it quite yet, but he is not top 3 for me this year solely because of that talent around him. He has the talent to be a top 3 quarterback for sure, just how well he can improvise and how well he can read a defense. But are his receivers going to be able to play up to his level, and is his defense going to be able to keep the ball in his hands? And those are the questions that keep Aaron Rodgers out of my top 3.
Yeah, I can see why. I see why that he's not number 1. But I do believe that not only will the defense do a lot better this year, but I think that the receiving core is going to surprise people this year. It won't be as good without Devontae, but I do believe that it'll allow him to spread the ball around a little bit more and find some more different options that maybe with Devontae there, he won't feel forced, won't feel like he needs to force the ball to Devontae.
That's a good point. Now to number 3.
For my number 3, I got the man, Justin Herbert, who we were just talking about. And, I mean, this guy, he's got sheer talent and upside alone that places him among the upper echelon in the quarterbacks for 2022. He's a natural passer with an uber talented arm talent. And, I mean, what more can you say about him? He's got the frame build similar to Josh Allen. He came in with Josh Allen, and he's been able to lead the Chargers to a lot of good wins and just a lot of fluke losses. And I think this year the fluke losses will diminish and the wins will pile up more. And I got them as my AFC West winner.
You do? Great point with the fluke losses, because if they can just get a little bit of luck on their side, they become Super Bowl contenders out of nowhere after not even being in the playoffs. But I totally agree, Justin Herbert is a young stud in the league. And my number 3 is where Patrick Mahomes from the Kansas City Chiefs finally finds his spot on my list. Now, as I kind of touched on earlier, he has all the talent to be there. He just needs to make less flashy plays. And the thing that brought him down from last year, for me especially, was the fact that he has not only fewer weapons, but just less hype around him. He had all those good years in a row, and then now last year he kind of has a shaky year. And you can just tell that kind of the hype has been lost, the media has dropped him a little bit, Tyreek Hill goes to Miami, and that just hurt his kind of overall view from the outside even a little more. So I still think Mahomes is going to be a great quarterback, but I do have him dropping a little bit this season.
I think this is going to be Mahomes down here. I think this is going to be the year where he doesn't have anyone to throw the ball to. It's going to be a lot more on him. Travis Kelce's getting older. You know, they just signed him to an extension, but he's their top option. I don't know who else is going to catch the ball there. I mean, Juju Smith has drop issues. Marquez Valdez has drop issues. They don't know who's going to be the running back. They keep switching between Edwards-Helaire, Ronald Jones, Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, there's just too many moving parts there for me to really think that they're going to have a successful season.
Certainly. I have heard Sky Moore out of Western Michigan has been a beast in camp so far, but him being a rookie, we'll have to see how that goes. So now to number 2.
For my number 2, I have Buffalo quarterback Josh Allen. And his thick athletic frame is still progressing positively as a passer. And he's still yet to hit his ceiling, I believe. And he's still the number 2 quarterback in the NFL right now. And he will be a perennial MVP candidate for years to come. I don't know what more you can say about him after last year. As long as he keeps up what he did last year and doesn't turn into a turnover machine like he was at Wyoming at times, then I think that Buffalo will be just fine for quite a while.
Certainly agree. I will be talking about Josh Allen fairly shortly here, so I'll hold off. But for my number 2, I have Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson. Ooh. Now, he might be a little high here, just considering his age and the fact that he's in a new place. But if you look at the talent around him, it's just as much, if not better than Seattle. If you look at the defense, it's just as talented, if not better than Seattle's. And one thing that I really like to point out is the playbook and even more the coaching staff. Now, Pete Carroll is kind of an all-around more head coach, but now he's going to be moving in there to the Broncos with Nathaniel Hackett, a true offensive-minded head coach, the Packers offensive coordinator last year, and you saw what he was able to do a little bit with Aaron Rodgers. So I am very excited to see what he's going to be able to do with Russell Wilson, and that's why you find him so high on my list.
Yeah, I definitely think that the coaching is going to help him more than it had in Seattle.
Yep. So now moving on to the final big number 1.
So for my number 1, this is not a homer pick.
This is not
what it start. It is the reigning, defending, undisputed NFL MVP, and he will remain on top until someone dethrones him. I mean, what else can you say about him? He can freestyle with the best of them still. Super accurate in and out of the pocket with a cannon arm that rivals few. I mean, this guy, he is the man. He is the boss. He is the guy. And he will be the guy until he says he's done. Really, I mean,
until he says he's
until
done.
He's ready.
Until he decides.
Until he decides to hang him up, this will be the man. And I mean, with the big extension that he signed in Green Bay, I mean, that just goes to show that he will finish his career in Green Bay. I think that, you know, Jordan Love will wait in the wings, and we will have a third Hall of Fame quarterback to follow him. But until that happens, he will remain on top.
That was beautiful. No words. All I gotta say is anytime you start with "this is not a homer pick," it is 100,000,000% a homer pick coming right after.
That's like when you're like, I don't mean to be offensive.
And then say something wildly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But for my number 1, I have the easiest pick for me on this entire list, none other than Bills quarterback Josh Allen. You get that dual threat with Allen. He's a beautiful thrower of the ball, and you can take off and run with the best of them. He's got the talent around him with guys like Stephon Diggs and a lot of depth there at the receiver corps. And then just overall, just talent on that team, talent from Josh Allen. He had a beautiful year last year, and I think he's going to continue that. And I think he really has a chance to dethrone Rodgers at that MVP spot. I really do. If anyone's going to do it, I think it's going to be him. The only kind of knock I have on him is you'll have to keep an eye on the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator, because now they lost their last year's offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, to the New York Giants. He's the head coach there now. And they now have Ken Dorsey as a first-time offensive coordinator there in Buffalo, who I believe was the quarterback's coach. So he at least does have that rapport with Josh Allen.
Ken Dorsey.
But nevertheless, he is a first-time offensive coordinator, so you got to keep an eye on that.
the national championship winning quarterback at the Miami University from 2003. He was the 7th round pick of the 49ers.
Was he really?
Yep.
Well,
I don't
there you
know
go.
why. I just remember
Well,
Ken
now-
Dorsey was. I thought he was going to be a great quarterback, and
Well, now
He was not.
now he's the offensive coordinator for the league's best quarterback. So, so that has been all of our top 10 rankings for the offensive side of the ball. And now we will be jumping straight into the preseason, which is
Yep.
so exciting.
Week
NFL
one of the
football.
preseason is this week.
NFL football is just around the corner, and man, we cannot be more excited for it. So make sure to stay tuned here to Eating W's. And until next time, don't forget.
To eat that W.